up. Welcome, Congresswoman Dingell.
Hi, Robyn.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you, and I'm glad you're doing okay.
Yeah.
As a preliminary matter, as she stated in regards to being seen, you need to stop your video if you don't want to be seen. If you are being recorded, so everyone please mute your phone until, or whatever device, until you are to speak. Thank you.
Robyn, can you update the panel's names? Congresswoman Dingell's name is not appearing properly.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm actually sharing it on our Facebook page right now. So let's see.
And should my camera be on now, or am I gonna wait until the question and answer period to turn my camera on?
You can be on now. That's fine.
I'm just curious, Robyn, is my picture spotlighted?
Let me see. I'm just trying to, I'm in the live
I don't
producer.
think I can't do that with no host, if I'm not a host, but. Well, you can just get started with the
You're
Facebook.
on there. You're live.
Because it's just recording.
It's posting live as well. I'm just waiting for it to go in.
We might want to get started with introductions even without it being on.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to start with the introduction. Hello, everyone. I know this is time permitting. We don't want to kind of infringe on anyone's time. This is our only Sunday until we have to go through the Monday through Friday schedule. So we want to make sure everyone is, has their schedules in place. So again, my name is Rita White. I am the president of the Black Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, and I am very, very pleased and happy to introduce all of our congresswomen and our state representatives for the state of Michigan. This is a very important month. As we all know, this is Women's History Month. And we want to make sure we continue the dialogue, the communications, and the understanding of how much women have pretty much put into our state, our country, to move it forward. So Attorney Robyn McCoy has been the main committee chair to actually put this presentation together. So I commend her for putting this matter together. And I would just like to thank all of you congresswomen and state representatives for being willing and able to be present at this actual presentation. As we know, it's very, very crucial that we all be online in terms of communication and understanding of what's going on in the government. That's going to, of course, affect all of us from the top to the bottom. We have a lot of issues going on in our community right now, in our state, in our country, health issues, political issues, civil rights issues that we really, as women, need to make sure we're on top of, so we, as powerful women, can make a change and help guard this situation so we all will have freedom and our due process and our rights honored 24/7. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton on to Attorney Robyn McCoy, Vice President of the Black Women Lawyers Association. Robyn McCoy, to introduce the Congresswomen.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Madam President Rita White. And I want to thank our membership and our honored guests, our congresswomen and our state representatives for coming out to this event. I would note that last year at this time, we actually had planned an event with elected officials, but COVID-19, Rona rolled up and we had to cancel it. And we had some state reps. One of them actually was the late state rep Isaac Robinson. And but we're back. We're back with full force. We got congresswomen here as well. And so, again, this is Women's History Month. We are an organization that is dedicated to uplifting Black women lawyers. I am also the vice chair for the Michigan Democratic Women's Caucus, which is also an organization that is dedicated to uplifting women and encouraging more women to run for office. So I'm really excited that we have this distinguished panel of guests here today. I'm going to be brief with the introductions because I know we want to have time for everybody to give remarks, and then also for those who are able to stay to give a Q&A. We also, I sent for everybody, we did a resolution. We were talking about we had some really crazy things going on. We had the insurrection on January 6th. We've had some things happening on a local level with our governor and just this crazy kind of state of affairs that have happened in Michigan, and some, real serious issues that have impacted us all, but particularly there's been a strong impact on the Black community. So I will start with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. And this is not her first time with us. We had an event where she was with us in the summer with Women Lawyers of Michigan. So she represents the 14th Congressional District that includes Detroit. She's been the mayor of the city of Southfield. She went to public school, Pershing High School, and got her bachelor's degree in public administration from Central Michigan University. So we have her. We also have my Congresswoman, Debbie Dingell, who is amazing. Anytime I need her to come out, do something, she's there, from, my programming that I do on what to do when stopped by the police to, expungement. She's there, she's very positive, encouraging. And so she has had a career dedicated to advancing the causes of women and children. She represents the 12th District of Michigan. She also has had a background, 30 years serving as one of Michigan's, working with GM Corporation, where she was president of the GM Foundation and a senior executive. So she's led a number of efforts and initiatives, as I said, for, dealing with young people and education stemming from her role as the WSU Wayne State University governor and co-chair of the Children's Leadership Council. So she, you probably saw her too, leading a good fight, activism in the community. Next, we have one of our honored members of the squad, Congresswoman Rashida Thliab, she's out there doing that thing. My partner and I, Ed, we often see her at the National Lawyers Guild events. I've known her since she was, when she was like a state senator. She was just doing that thing, and she's been doing that thing, and fighting for the causes, dealing with housing, the environment, all kinds of issues that have affected all of us. Just injustices that are here in America, even in the world. I mean, people keep lauding Israel. They keep talking about how wonderful Israel, but I just read an article was talking about that they're for the vaccines, they're not doing their vaccines properly for folks that are Palestinian. So it's like, you can't just hold Israel up as this. And I'm Christian. I got love for Israel, but I got love for the Palestinian people too. So so just happy to have Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who's as I said, she's holding that thing. She's holding it down. Then we have Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who she grew up in Rochester Hills, Michigan. She graduated from Seaholm High School in Birmingham. Before she was elected as a congresswoman, she served as the chief of staff to the U.S. Auto Rescue Task Force, the federal initiative responsible for saving GM, Chrysler, and 200,000 Michigan jobs. She sits on the House Committee on Education and Labor and the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. And she serves as chairwoman of the Research and Technology Subcommittee. So she resides in Rochester Hills and attends Kensington Church in Troy. So I'm going to turn it over real quickly to Delicia Coleman, who's going to introduce, she's our parliamentarian. She's going to introduce our state reps, and then we're going to get some comments, remarks from our Congresswoman, and then remarks from our state reps. So without further ado, Delicia.
Thank you, and thank you all for attending, Congresswomen, state reps, members of the Black Women's Law Association of Michigan, and anyone else that is partaking either live or on video of this wonderful celebration of women's history. We have today our state rep, Tanisha Yancey, and to say this is not in any order, but we thank everyone. Just briefly, that she's serving her third full term representing the first House district, which includes cities of Grosse Pointe Woods, Harper Woods, and parts of the villages of Grosse Pointe Shores and Detroit. She graduated with a Bachelor of Applied Science degree from Eastern Michigan University. While working full-time for Wayne County, she attended law school and graduated receiving her law degree from University of Detroit Mercy Law School in 2013. She's also a member of Delta Sigma Theta SI and an active member in her community, speaking at school fairs, churches and community meetings, and making sure that the people's wishes are being heard in her position. We also have State Rep Kyra Bolden. She is serving her second term representing Michigan's 35th House District, which includes communities of Southfield, Lathrop Village, Bingham Farms, and Franklin. I'm going to ask you to mute your phone.
No, you can't, Mama. It's hard to get out that door.
Please.
I just muted him.
And to finish with State Rep Kyra Bolden, there are extensive things in their bios, but we're just hitting the high points because we understand that everyone has a time schedule. She was a graduate of Southfield Public Schools. She received her bachelor's degree from Grand Valley State University and went on to attend University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. She is a lifelong resident of Southfield. She's committed to serving the people of 35th House District, but also all of the community as a state rep in Lansing by fighting for high quality jobs, criminal justice reform, and world-class education system. Last but certainly not least, our state rep, Sarah Anthony. She is serving her second full term representing the 68th House District in Lansing, which encompasses the city of Lansing and Lansing Township. Making strides as Women's History Month, she is the first African-American woman to serve as a state representative in Lansing's history. So big ups for that acknowledgement. During the 100th legislature, Rep. Anthony earned a reputation as a pragmatic, effective legislator, passing multiple bills through the House of Representatives and into law with substantial bipartisan and stakeholder support. She is a fearless advocate for healthcare access, social justice, services for senior citizens and working families. And we thank you all for attending and participating today.
Thank you, Delicia. So we're going to get started. We're going to go ahead and get some remarks, starting with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence.
Thank you so much. I want to say good afternoon and thank you to all the Black women members of the Michigan Association. And today we are celebrating Women's History Month, which I'm so excited about. I represent Michigan's 14th district. And just to let you know how amazing and diverse my district is, I have all of the Grosse Pointes, half of Detroit, I have Harper Woods, and then I have Hamtramck, I have Royal Oak Township, Oak Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield, Kegel Harbor, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and Pontiac. So when you think about those communities, you know the diversity, the Jewish, the Chaldean community, the Indian community, the Hispanic community. I am blessed to have a majority African-American district. And so as we talk about Women's History Month and we celebrate those who came before us as trailblazers and pioneers, I firmly believe, and I want to pass this on, that I feel that the soul and the moral compass of our country rests on the shoulders of women. And I am proud every day to be able to walk the halls of Congress as a Black woman, being the halls, those same halls were built by slaves, to have the opportunity of leadership like so many of you. And I just can't tell you how proud I am of each of you. I want you to know that I feel that when you're given the opportunities, you have to do the work. So I serve as the co-chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus. Last Congress, I was the co-chair of the entire Women's Caucus for Congress. I currently serve as the second vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I have a unique opportunity and a platform to lift the voices of Black women in the Women's Caucus and in the Black Caucus. But before I go on to talk about other things, I just want to recognize two women, because I think it's important that during Women's History Month that we take a moment to think about those trailblazers and those who shaped our lives. I want to say, first of all, was my grandmother, a woman who at the age 55, when my mother died when I was 3 years old, inherited two children, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, a woman without a high school education who would never, never leave the message that education, Brenda, you have to fight through and you have to get your education. She said 3 things you need. You need to have your education, you need to work hard, and you need to keep your faith in God. And if, Brenda, if you do that, there's no door you can't walk through, no table that you do not deserve to have a seat at. And when you're talking about a seat at the table, I want to talk about Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman in Congress, the woman who helped pave the way for me. I'm standing on her shoulders. She proved every day that women and Black women deserve to have a seat at the table. And her famous line is, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I did that in 2001. After serving for nearly 30 years in the United States Postal Service, I became the first African-American and the first woman to ever serve as the mayor of the city of Southfield. And currently, I'm the only African-American member in our Michigan congressional delegation. Many of you know we have so many firsts that are still happening, like our amazing Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black African-American. She is also the first Asian American and the daughter of immigrants to serve as the vice president of this country. We continue to build foundations for every time you get a step forward. What are you doing? You are laying a foundation for the next generation to stand on your shoulders. I'm standing on those before me, and I'm planting my feet so that young Black girls moving forward will have an opportunity to say, I too can do that. I wanted to tell you one of the most impactful moments was when I was elected mayor, and I went to a school, and just for the point of record, I started my political career on the school board, and then went from school board to city council, and then mayor, and now member of Congress. But the little girl walked up to me and she said, "You're the mayor?" I said, "Yes." I was in her classroom to do read a book to the class, and she stared at me a little bit. She said, "But you're a girl." I said, "Yes, I am a girl." And then she kind of smiled and pulled her shoulders back. She said, "So I can be a mayor too?" I said, "Absolutely." That's the power of everything that we do. When you talk about Women's History Month, every single woman is a role model to someone, regardless of what level of leadership or accomplishment. There's a young girl looking at you and saying, my goodness, if she can do it, I can do it too. And the little boys are watching us as well, because when they see us step into a spot where they've never seen a woman, it changes their trajectory, and they understand that women deserve to be there as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about, you asked me to talk about the insurrection. I want you to know that I was on the floor when this happened. It's something that'll never leave me, because I was asked to take cover. I was asked to put on a gas mask, and I heard a mob banging on the door and screaming, trying to get into the chamber, and then having police to come in with guns drawn, telling us to leave, run, 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 get out, and then being taken to a place to be safe and being guarded. But the thing that was so amazing to me, another amazing woman, Nancy Pelosi, after we had been there a while, and it seemed like we were there forever, she walked in and said, "We're going back to the floor, and we're going to certify the election." And I'm sitting there going like, girlfriend, I am traumatized. I need therapy right now. I wasn't even there. She said, we have been attacked. We are at war and they are not going to win. We're going to go back to that floor. We're going to vote and we're going to certify the election. And the power that it took for us to reshape our mind and to gather our thoughts and have the courage to walk through broken glass and tear gas cans on the floor and broken, doors broken open, to walk past all of that, to go to the floor to vote is what our democracy is about. And I want to say to everyone, we worked hard in this last election to get people out to vote. Whether they voted for your candidate or not, we had record turnouts. Elections in our democracy, it matters. And for that day, it was something worth fighting for. I want you all to know that I went through 3 I's in January. I went through the insurrection, I went through impeachment, and I went through an inauguration. That's our democracy, and it works. And I'm so proud of everything you do in protecting the law, because we know it's 3 legs to our democracy. It's the legislative, executive, and the judicial. And you are part of our democracy. I want to say thank you. I will always be there for you, and never forgetting that as a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta as well, a member of a sisterhood, and being a Black woman in America, that we know that we have awesome power. We have shown it time and time again, and we will not step down. And this country is something that we will continue to build and fight for. Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. That was awesome and amazing. Thank you for all you do. And now we're going to turn it over to my Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, to give us some remarks.
Thank you, Robyn. I want to thank Rita, and I want to thank you and the entire Black Women's Lawyer Association for bringing us together today. I have to say something about Robyn, because she has been a friend for a long time, but she's really been important to me in teaching me about issues. The first time I went to one of the classes she taught, which was long before Black Lives Matter became a word that a lot of people talked about, it made me think about before. And she did that with me as soon as I got elected to Congress. Criminal justice reform has become something that's very important to me, as I've met many. We don't understand what happens to young Black men and how many of them are in prison and how they're not treated the same. I've marched with her. I think one of the most exciting things to me last summer, I kind of look back and can't believe, as paranoid as I am about COVID, that I participated in as many vigils and walks as I did Black Lives Matter last summer. I participated in 25 of them in the 12th district. But community after community of young people, I'm talking Roselle, Trenton, in Allen Park and Lincoln Park, the police chiefs came out and were part of it. It was just an incredible moving summer when people had uncomfortable conversations but came together. And Robyn McCoy has been such an important part of that, teaching me that I want to thank her for what she does with me every day, for the role she plays, and how lucky you all are to have her as one of your leaders as part of this group. So I have to say that, because it really matters. She's even got me, this will be my 3rd year of speaking at Hash Bash. I've never smoked marijuana, never gonna smoke marijuana, but Robyn kind of got me there too. But anyway, I always say that, Rashida always laughs. I'm not your normal Hash Bash speaker, but there are a lot of things we need to change, and criminal justice reform is one of them. Let me just say this about Women's History Month, and then I'm going to quickly move to legislative things, because there are a number of things that I care about. But I am where I am because of the women that went before me and opened the doors wider. And we all have that responsibility to reach out and lift up the next generation of women. And the other thing I'll say about my generation of women, first of all, it's very exciting to be here with my colleagues, Rashida, Haley, and Brenda. We all work together. We're a sisterhood that supports each other. And I wish we did more with the state legislators. We work with them a little. They're in our district, but we need to do more together. We need to support each other. And when I was, with GM, women felt like if one succeeded, it hurt the other. And we still don't do a good job of supporting each other. The Old Boys Network has been alive and well for decades, and we as women need to support each other. Instead of viewing one woman's success as I might not, we need to view it as lifting up everybody. And that's that's my message of Women's History Month, is let's all work together to help everybody succeed and help women get ahead. And that is so critical because we do bring a different perspective. We're used to being multitaskers and having many balls in the air. We're not into test run fights. We're into problem solving, and we bring compassion and empathy to solving problems. Brenda talked about January 6th in vivid detail, and we all have similar stories. But I would say to you, I was on the floor as Brenda was. I never thought we weren't safe. Until, if you're a woman from Michigan and you've been in the Donald Trump hate tunnel, which I have, men outside your home with assault weapons, the death threats, you would have been prepared for the Michigan militia. We're used to Michigan militia here. And by the way, they're targeting all of us. They're targeting women. They're targeting the African-American community, minority communities. This country is being divided by fear and hate. And we didn't have access to a television, so we didn't understand how bad it was out there until we finished at 4 a.m. and actually saw some of those scenes. And I've talked about it for a long time. Donald Trump didn't like me because I spoke the truth. And he was trying to divide this country with fear and hatred. And he still is. And there are a lot of people out there. Our job is to speak up and speak out and not let that hatred win. That's my message from January 6th. That's fear and hatred dividing this country. They're attacking the fundamental pillars of our democracy. And we got to fight back and not let them win. And Michigan, unfortunately, has a lot of these people living here and fighting the fight. You've seen a number of people that have been arrested with regards to January 6th come from Michigan. And look at what they're doing to the governor. It's so unacceptable. And I'll leave it at that. We've had a full legislative agenda and a lot of issues that you care about. Haley and Rashida can talk about the COVID relief, which we're all working hard to get shots in arms, to make sure schools are opened, money in people's pockets, and protect jobs. And for me, one of the things that's been very important is Robyn knows Ypsilanti, the way that the vaccines are being distributed has been by county. So Ypsi and Ypsi Township, which has a significant African-American population, has not had the vaccines that they've needed. Actually, some of Western Wayne hasn't either. Rashida knows this, Robyn. Some people, I say on a nice day, I say I've been a witch. The fact of the matter is I've been a bitch, trying to get more vaccines in, and we're starting to see it more, but we need to make sure that the communities that have been disparately impacted by COVID-19 have access to these vaccines. The FEMA, we're all going to go together tomorrow to tour the FEMA center. That's going to be a beginning, but we need people to bring these vaccines to sites. We need to bring them to the senior towers. And a lot of us are having to fight to get them there. And that's been something that's been very important. And I'll let Haley and Rashida talk more about COVID. There have been several other bills that matter to me, and I want to talk to you about two of them. One is the Violence Against Women's Act, which we passed this week, which has not been reauthorized since 2013, 2014. And the incidence of domestic violence calls are way up with the national hotline. Experts think that domestic violence has increased by 25%. but I work with all of the local domestic violence shelters in this area, and they're not getting funding. They don't have funding for critical programs because the money comes from the Violence Against Women's Act. One of the things that they're the most against, the NRAs after me, I wear that with a badge of honor, although it can get those guys in front of your house with assault weapons, is that I don't think someone who's been convicted as a convicted felon for having abused somebody, an intimate partner with a gun, should have access to a gun. It's that simple. And the NRA is opposed to it. We need to help each other. Too many women and children are trapped in situations that they think they have no hope. They think there's nowhere to go. They're feeling dependent. And think of how much worse that's gotten when you've been locked in with someone that's a control freak. You don't have access to phones. You don't know how you're going to live. And we have got to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act this year. We passed it in the House last week. I could talk about it forever, but we got to get it through the Senate. And then I also reintroduced Medicare for All. I think many of my colleagues are on it. We had 112. We're going to keep working on it. We are the only industrialized nation in the world that does not guarantee every one of its citizens access to health care. You know, when John was sick, that's when I really realized how fractured this healthcare system is. I'm luckier than 99 and 9/10 of the people in this country. In the days I just would pound my head on the wall, fighting with people trying to, just trying to get access to doctors. And when we look at how COVID-19 has disparately impacted certain communities, it's communities that don't have access to the doctors, that they can't get the preventative health care they need. They worry about whether they can afford their medicine or put food on the table. It's time that we stop having people be afraid of that and know if they're sick, they can take their child or themselves, and they don't have to choose between medicine and food on their table. So I think it's time. I think COVID has given us this moment in time to guarantee every American health care. We could talk about, you know, we've passed the George Floyd bill, Rashida may. There's a lot of bills to talk to you about and no time to talk about it all. But we are working really, really hard in Washington on a lot of issues that you care about. I'll stop there, Robyn, so my colleagues have time. So
thank you, Congresswoman Dingell. And next we'll hear from Congresswoman Rashida Thliab, one of the members of the squad.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Robyn. Thank you all of you. Many of you are my frontline advocates on the ground that are pushing back against some of the structural racism, as well as just the attack of I think our systems that have been placed. I don't care what court system or policies out there that really does criminalize our poor families. I do want to just talk briefly about the importance. As you all know, my nickname among some of my colleagues is Mama Bear because I'm the eldest of 14. I'm a child of 2 immigrant parents. And, you know, my mother was someone that I translated for until I was 12 years old. And I just remember to this day, I always talk about this importance of just being able to grow up in this beautiful Black city, is my mother at parent-teacher meetings, the meetings that we used to have. We used to have these meetings at Harms Elementary School and Woodrow Wilson Middle School. And one of the things that she would do is try to ask a question or try to, even when they were doing introductions, my mom would whisper because she had this heavy accent. And it would be the Black mothers in the room that said, Fatima, raise your voice. We can't hear you. So they really taught her to continue to not shy away and being heard and seen in spaces that she's just not used to being in. And so I think it's really important about the importance of continuing to understand and believe that in many cases, Black women in our nation has saved us in many ways than once. And not only in speaking truth, but also even using their bodies and putting their bodies on the line to defend against so much of the injustices. But, you know, one of the things I do want to talk about is the fact that the pandemic and COVID exposed a lot of the broken systems that you all are involved in. You all see it. If it's not from the clients you represent, or even how some of you might be involved in employment or worker justice, you saw that many of the systems and structures were just not protecting or creating the safety net for Black women in our country. And so it is really critically important that we speak that truth. And then not allow people to pretend that prior to the pandemic that was normal. If anything, the pandemic just exposed how that wasn't normal and how it was unjust, and that we need to do something about it. Not only does this COVID relief package address some of those economic issues, from child poverty to being able to acknowledge that we need access to mobility with vaccinations, access to our community health clinics, to be able to partner with them, to be able to go to some of our most vulnerable communities. But it also, I think, acknowledges, if anything, that we have inequity in our school system, the number of issues addressed around childcare and things like that, and we're not even done with that. And again, if anything, it exposed just how broken the systems are. But I do want, Robyn, just really quickly, because we're already behind, is I do want to, one of the things that has been really inspiring during this pandemic that I want to share with all of you, I don't know if folks have heard of Sonia Renee Taylor. She is a spoken word artist, but also poet, author, amazing. And one of the things that she says, and I'll put it in the chat as well, about COVID, is something that I really centers me on what this long-term fight in our partnership will look like. But she says this, okay, she said, quote, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are been given an opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." And it just really is powerful to hear about this idea around what does that new garment look like? And I think with the lens of looking through the experience and lived experience of Black women. And Robyn knows this, in any space that I am, especially among my Black sisters, is I constantly, and it's harder to get many of you on this Zoom thing to run for office. You run the other way when I say it. I can see it in your face. You're like, no, and I want you to know, like, it took 7 different people to convince me to run. 7. And not only that, even for Congress, I was like, no way, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Or it's almost like we're seeking permission to seek out leadership. And, many of us are not running to be first. Sarah Anthony did not run to be the first Black woman in East Lansing. That's true. She didn't. You know why she did it? She did it because she felt needed. And I don't want to speak for her, but I know what that feeling is, especially us women. It's like we wait to feel needed. And I'm telling you all, you're needed. Needed not to become the first. Yes, I want you there to tear down. Brenda tore down some more windows and walls, metaphorically, to open more doors for other Black women to serve, right? Just like Shirley Chisholm did it for her. But I'm telling you all, more than even that, your lived experiences, your lens are missing from spaces. Shirley Chisholm, it may have said, bring the folding chair at those tables. And Brenda knows this. I love that, bring your own chair. But I'm at the school of thought at this moment of shaking the table. Not all my colleagues want to do, but we need to shake the table, y'all. And we need to take someone else's chair, because that table is way too big. And they sprinkle us onto the table as if like diversifying the room is going to, no, unless they truly hear us and see us and understand our experiences of being women of color in this country. That's the only way we're going to have change. And so I need you all and all levels of government to please run for office. You see these broken systems, but your own experience in that room. When I hear Ayanna talk about every time she hears a phone ring now, any kind of phone that sounds like a landline, she thinks about her mother getting evicted, that trauma of, again, criminalizing the poor, and again, leaving women like us behind in policy. And so I just ask all of you to please, because I love that some of my predecessors served 50 years in Congress. I don't want to serve that long yet. So you all have to hurry up and run and get into these spaces, run for all, again, levels of government. You're so needed. And again, Sarah, myself, and many others will tell you, and I know she will, when you're there, I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican, you can hear it. they don't understand, and they're so completely disconnected with what the change that needs to happen, completely disconnected. And sometimes they think, let's study more, no, we're telling you it's broken. We're telling you to stop doing it. And so it's really important, again, that you all find the space to find the courage that you're needed, and that you're, again, it's not about this idea that somehow, poof, you're going to be ready. I always tell people, like, I don't think I've ever was ready to become a mother until they put that baby in my arms, and it was like, be a mother. And so please know that as long as you care enough to do the right thing, then you deserve to run for office and be in a space and take someone's chair that already had their chance and change didn't happen. So it's time for you all to please do it. And just know that I will always have your back and uplift you in those spaces. The mama bear in me will come out warring and making sure that you are seen and heard. So I thank you with that, and I appreciate all of you. And again, continue the amazing, great work. Thank you for showing up at TCF. I know many of you did, to defend our votes, to protect our votes. Thank you for that. I know it was hard to see them banging on the doors. Thank you for showing up and being fearless. Thank you. And I can't wait to be out there again in the streets with you all demanding justice. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Yes, just awesome, awesome. And so now we're going to round it out with a Congresswoman, with Congresswoman Haley Stevens to give us some remarks.
Thank you so much. It is, Robyn, it's such an honor to be with you, to be with Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who I could just say I just tuned in to listen to Brenda, because anytime you get to hear Brenda Lawrence on women's issues, your day will be made. And it's very true that she has been a leader in the Congress the last handful of years for all of us women, and particularly for me, coming in for my first term 2 years ago. And then you added Debbie Dingell to this, and listening to Debbie, you know, she's got the policy down, she's got the heart down, she's got the finger on the pulse of the community. And of course, Rashida Tlaib, whose message is absolutely resounding about putting up your hand and running for office. And I do see with our state reps on, Kyra Bolden Harris, who's a woman lawyer, a Black woman lawyer in her own right, and a true trailblazer here in Oakland County, and to so many others who join her steed. I was thinking as my colleagues were talking about this plight that all of us are on as women, and how entirely significant and historic it is that we chose to gather here today on the first day of spring, hence my background, the blades of grass coming up, breathing their fresh and new air on this, what we know in Michigan is maybe not the first feeling day of spring, but according to the calendars is the first day of spring. But how we chose to come together today to reflect on women's history, and reflecting just 2 months into the Biden-Harris administration, 2 months from the conclusion of an administration that felt as if it were terrorizing women. Less than 2 months since the attack on our Capitol on January 6th. And just a week shy, as Debbie Dingell said, of passing yet again in the House of Representatives the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women's Act that we hope and demand that the Senate takes up to right these wrongs. And yet we ask ourselves this question on this day, which is, behind every, and this is a quote, is behind every strong woman is a tribe of other strong women who have their back. And that is a part of why it is so essential that we come together through the discourse, through the policy exchange, and through the plight forward. I am on the House Science Committee, as you shared, Robyn, and I'm a subcommittee chair. It's an incredible honor, but it is also one of the honors of my life to serve under Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson's leadership as the full committee chair, as the first woman, as the first Black woman to chair the Science Committee in the Congress. So we can have the proper conversation around women in STEM and equity and inclusion and racial bias, something that Rashida Tlaib has told us time and time again, that the artificial intelligence isn't always working for us and in fact is perpetuating bias in our system. We wait and we ask for when we are going to have the first Black woman on our Supreme Court, when we will get Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill, something that Brenda Lawrence has led on in the Congress, and something as someone who, when I was working on the U.S. Auto Rescue in the United States Department of the Treasury, recalling when President Obama said this was coming, and then recalling when this former administration said they were stalling, that they were more interested in feeling more confident and trying to send men and women to Mars before they could recognize Harriet Tubman on our $20 bill. We have heard this, we have said this, we feel this in our very bones, that representation matters. And that is a part of my shared journey to Rashida as the first woman to represent Michigan's 11th district, which is I put up my hand to run for the seat, not because anyone gave me a call to do so, but because I felt something in my bones, because I felt like there was a need for change and new voices, additional voices, by the way, because I knew Brenda and Debbie needed some friends in the Congress to push forward. And if I may say, you know, we are doing these things under the first woman vice president in the history of this great country. She wasn't the first woman to be on the vice presidential ticket. She wasn't the first woman to run for president, but she was the first one who got there. And we only get these 2-year terms. So this 2 years that we have in our majority, under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi, under the leadership of my colleagues here today, is entirely significant for how we continue to push forward. I just heard Vice President Kamala Harris say this, that we have a crisis in this country with women. We have a crisis in this country with women who are out of work, who have had to step out of the workforce or are being pushed to the very brink, more than you're already pushed to the brink. Remember the luxury, the conversation of when or how we could do it all, like how we handle it all, how we do it all as women. And that just snapped, that just broke in this pandemic. And I agree with Rashida's words that we here are saying that it was never easy. It was never normal. It was never okay how we pushed ourselves to unaffordable daycare options, how we've told ourselves on a false promise that you can, you know, just work and not get the equal pay. And it's not lip service to even push for it. So when we reflect on, right, when we reflect on this notion of what we got done and the policy of what we got done in the Rescue Act that didn't just get dragged out and passed by the House, and then we waited for the Senate, and then we got jerked around. No, we got this done. We got it passed and signed by President Biden. And you hear about that child tax credit, having child poverty, slicing it in half, the checks in people's hands so that they can pay their bills, so that they can seek an option to put their kid in an affordable daycare and go back to work safely. Say it with me again. Why don't we have paid leave in this country once and for all? Why don't we have that peace of mind and that security? And yet we are in the middle of this rescue. We are in the middle of this pandemic. We are still doing triage. We are still pushing for the shots in people's arms, and yet we are together. So I want to thank you all for this reflection today on Women's History Month, on the women who are in leadership, on the women who should step into leadership, and the women yet to come, the young girls who are watching us, who are listening, who are aspiring, who are dreaming, and should be and can be everything they wish to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Stevens. That was awesome. That was empowering. And so now we're going to turn it over to State Representative Tanisha Yancey to give us some remarks.
Actually, we got notice that State Rep had a unexpected conflict, is not present. She will attempt to come in, but we will have our other state reps speak at this time.
Okay, so if we can go with State Representative Kyra Bolden then.
Hi, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. First, want to say thank you for having me, the Black Women Lawyers Association, as a Black woman attorney. I appreciate all the work that you've done. And Robyn, when I had my criminal justice reform clinic right before COVID, you were there. So I want to thank you for being there and letting the community know what's going on with criminal justice reform and helping with the clinic. Just want to say shout out to the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, since, you know, my Delta sisters shouting each other out. So shout out to Dorothy, Dean, and Sarah Anthony. Those are the ones that I can see right now. So my other sorors, hello. But I just wanted to just give a couple remarks because we talked about the insurrection. And I just want to say that the legislators on this call, myself and Sarah Anthony, and as well as Representative Tanisha Yancey, we were there on April 30th, which we all know is to be the dry run for the insurrection. And so if you're ever wondering what women of color, what women are going through, there were literal signs on our Capitol grounds that said, "Tyrants get the noose." They had Barbie dolls with nooses around, you know, dolls of Governor Whitmer. There were Confederate flags, there were swastikas on our Capitol lawn. And that's what we had to walk through that day, as well as people just being armed, right? Which was a very, very scary thing. And so I just want to say, you know, we need to be vigilant in this moment. We need to be together, and we cannot, and we just have to continue to stand up to hate. Because this has escalated and escalated and escalated, and we saw what it turned into with the insurrection on our Capitol grounds, which I think, as Congresswoman Debbie Dingell said, many of those people were from Michigan. And so we just have to be vigilant about what's going on and make sure we're calling it out and not pushing it under the rug, because I know that what they told myself and Representative Sarah Anthony about that day was that we were overreacting. That it wasn't a big deal, that nobody got hurt, and they were peaceful protesters. And so again, I just want to say we need to be vigilant and together, especially in this moment. I just want to say that it's March's Reading Month. And when I was reading a story called Grace Goes to Washington, one of the little girls asked me a question about my job, and she said, "Who inspires me?" And I thought that was a really good question for a third grader. But I just did want to share my answer. And the first person I said was Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. And her being the mayor of Southfield, I have always looked up to her, and I'm so proud that she is my Congresswoman. And so I just want to thank you for Women's Month, for just being an inspiration to me personally. I don't think I would have even thought I could run for office if it wasn't for you. So I just wanted to publicly say that. She was a huge inspiration for me. Some things that I have worked on and been working on, as many of you know, I was the vice president or vice chair of the Progressive Women's Caucus last term. I have since transitioned out of that, but women's issues are at the top of my legislative agenda. So some things that I'm working on are fibroid legislation. For those that follow me on social media, we know, and as many of the women on this call probably know, that fibroids affect Black women in particular in higher numbers and are more severe. And I fall into that category, and I actually had to have major surgery to remove my fibroids. And so I have just been on this mission to let people know that, you know, you need to get checked and go and take proper steps, and hopefully we can get legislation passed, because it's the #1 cause of hysterectomies for women, and it can be a very, very serious condition, as it was for me. I'm also working on surrogacy legislation. So I'm not sure how many people know, but in Michigan, commercial surrogacy, meaning paying someone to carry your child, is actually a felony. So I'm working to rework the laws. As a result of it being a felony, it makes any contract regarding that issue unenforceable. So that might be an issue for my women lawyers, my Black women lawyers. If you want to work with me on that, please let me know. And I'm working very closely with the governor's office on implicit bias in healthcare. That's at the top of my legislative agenda. And as many of you know, I got 3 bills passed into law last term, which were all criminal justice reform. And I'm continuing to work on that. One of my bills just passed out of committee a couple of weeks ago, but I'm mostly working on decriminalization and sentencing reform this term. So if that perks any of those issues perked your ears up, please reach out to me at Kyra Bolden at house.mi.gov. Would love to work with you. It's Kyra Bolden. I'll put my information in the chat for you to contact me. But thank you so much for letting me be here, and I will let you move on with the program.
All right, so we're gonna, well, thank you, Representative Bolden. Thank you for being you. And so Representative Sarah Anthony, I just actually watched a video where you were talking about the hair discrimination legislation with some of the members of Women Lawyers of Michigan, and we at Black Women Lawyers of Michigan, we've been very much following that movement. As we are Black women and we've had to deal with hair discrimination. I personally have had to deal with head wrap discrimination, in the courts. I've talked about it. Yeah, I love you working your beautiful head wrap right there. So, so we definitely wanted to have you come in and give us some remarks and talk about what you're doing. So I'll turn it over to you, Representative Anthony.
Thank you. And thank you all for having me. I've just been enjoying the remarks. It's not every day that we get to listen and sit at the feet of the Congresswomen, such as Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence and Rashida Thliab. I mean, this has been a treat. And even on a sunny Sunday, this has been dope. So just thank you for allowing me to be here and including little old Lansing in this amazing event. As Representative Bolden said, and I won't dwell on it, April 30th was changed our lives. It changed how we feel when we go into our workplace. But also you should know that Black women stick up for each other, and we know how to keep each other safe. Because days after April 30th, I was escorted into the Capitol with Black and brown men and women who said that their state representative deserved to be protected. And so I hope that one of the lessons and legacy of these events is that we know how to protect our own. Our community wraps our arms around each other. And when we elect one another, we also know that there's no one that can keep us safe and protect us like we can when Black and brown folks come together. I am just so excited to be here and to talk a little bit about this journey of being elected as a Black woman, because it is uniquely different. It is a different experience being elected in the halls of power as a Black woman, as a woman in general. Right now in Michigan, we have 10 Black women that are serving in the House and 3 that are serving in the Senate. And whether it is our ability to get bills passed, our ability to raise money, ability just to navigate traditionally male and traditionally white spaces, it is just a different experience. But I will tell you, and I can just brag on Representative Bolden and myself, we are still able to get bills passed on behalf of our people. And I just believe we keep talking about these seats at these tables, but I would just add that whether you're a woman, whether you're a person of color, if you are at that table and after 2 or 4 or 6 or 10 years, you have not been an advocate for the people who sent you there, you no longer need to be at that table. In Michigan, we have a total of 6 years in the House of Representatives. That's all we get. We just have term limits that prohibit us from continuing to serve in that chamber. And so every day I have this sense of urgency. I don't have time to play. I don't represent a community that is affluent. My people need things. We need me to be at the table, not just existing, not just, excited to be there, to have a title, but my people need me to be unapologetically bold and fighting for issues that directly impact them. So, I'll tell you, when I'm introducing things that are very unique to the Black and brown experience or experiences about women, they're often met with opposition, particularly in a majority Republican legislature. So when I first introduced the Crown Act, for example, in 2019, I got laughed out of rooms. And some of those rooms were rooms full of Democrats. You know, this is an issue. It's interesting when you start to fight for issues that disproportionately impact Black folks and disproportionately impact Black women, you start to see where the rubber meets the road, where people's real alliances, real resources start to come into play. It's all good when they want our votes, right? When election time comes, when they want to use our images on campaign literature and in ads and commercials. But it's another thing when you say, let your vote speak for that, right? How does resource allocation look? How does your support look when I'm telling you that there are thousands of men and women and children who have been denied employment opportunities, promotions, have been told they can't take their school pictures because of how God created us and how our hair naturally grows out of our scalp, whether it is braids and twists and locks. I have been laughed out of rooms. I have been told that of all the things we should be focusing on, hair is no big deal. And so, and even now, and thank you for allowing me to be myself, I am deep conditioning my hair right now. It is Sunday, it is wash day. I love you all. I knew I'd have a safe space here, but it is a real issue. And even in the midst of COVID-19, when many Black women, involuntarily transitioned to natural because we could not go to the salon. I have heard from Black women and Black men who have said, you know what, I started to embrace my natural hair because I didn't have a choice for the past year. And I'm nervous about if my employer is going to reprimand me, if I'm not going to have promotions and other opportunities in the workplace. So this is a real issue that's impacting women and impacting Black women in particular. And so right now, if you go to mycrown.org, you'll see a way that you can sign the petition. We're going to have to make the case to many individuals who have never experienced hair discrimination. But I think that the wind is at our back. And so I'll make sure to put the information in the chat so that you can spread the word, share your own personal stories about hair discrimination, because we want to make it real. And I'll also tell you this. Having women, particularly Black women at the table matters. This term, as opposed to last term when this bill was sent to the legislative graveyard, this term, it was sent to the Judiciary Committee. And that is one of the most powerful committees in the legislature. And guess who sits on that committee? Two powerful Black women, Kyra Bolden and Representative Tanisha Yancey. So don't tell me that magic cannot happen, that power cannot happen by electing Black women in these very powerful positions. It's important. The last thing I'll say is, in addition to passing the Crown Act, I am always laser focused on making sure that the issues that we're promoting, that we're elevating, are ones that, again, at the end of my tenure, I can say, I helped change the trajectory and the conditions of our people. Things that are unique to all of us, really, right? Tackling student loan debt. Many of us can't even buy our first home, start a family, because we're saddled with student loan debt, right? Thinking about making sure that occupations that are typically overrepresented by Black and brown women, such as the hospitality industry, nursing, and direct care workers, making sure they're getting fair wages and better work conditions. Also tackling the state budget. Our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, she has actually been one of our strongest allies, making sure that we're not just talking the talk, but walking the walk in terms of getting real dollars to our communities. So we're looking at, appropriations that impact Black maternal health. We're looking at food and water access, environmental justice issues that are bread and butter, right? Table issues that impact Black families. This budget that she has proposed this year actually carves out real dollars for our communities. And so a part of the role in the legislature is for us to make sure that money stays in the budget and that we can continue to have the resources, not just the words, but the actual deeds that make sure that our folks have a fighting chance. So I would just say this as I take my seat, because that's just what you say when you're about to really wrap up, is thank you for standing with us. as I mentioned earlier, our experience is just fundamentally different. But every time I'm in a space like this, every time that we get an email or a direct message or a phone call that lifts us up and continues to say, we've got you, we are around you. As Haley Stevens said, there is a tribe of women that come with us in the halls of power. I hear your voices. I hear your encouragement, your mentorship. It means more than you know. And if any of us can ever be of assistance, you know where to find us. But also just know that we're going to continue to lean on you as well, because we need to be held accountable, and we need your help in holding all of those politicians accountable that continue to knock on our doors and send those text messages and emails and begged us for money. It is our responsibility to hold them accountable. So thank you for the time. Thank you for standing with us, and just know we're always going to have you back. So God bless.
All right. Thank you, Representative Anthony. That was awesome. And yes, we could, girl, I'm telling you, we have talked about some issues with, dealing with the head. As I said, I have my own video dealing with head wraps, hair discrimination, all the things that were talked about, fibroids. I can give my own test. I'm dealing with some stuff now with fibroids. It's a common issue for women, but definitely Black women. So I'm going to turn this, over to Jocelyn Flemons. She's she's a student at University of Detroit Mercy, and she's one of our moderators, and my legal assistant, Edward Dance, who I want to give a shout out to because he helped to connect with our congresswomen and our state reps. So shout out to Edward for helping to coordinate this event. And so we'll turn it over, and thank you for those of who you have been able to stay. Thank you for staying. We're just going to have a quick Q&A, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. This has been a treat for me just seeing you all and actually being a part of this event. So thank you again for being here. So for the women who are able to stay for the Q&A section of the program, I'm going to pose the question, and if you want to answer, just feel free to unmute yourself and respond. It's not addressed to any particular woman, whoever wants to speak. We want to hear from anybody who wants to talk. So my first question, and you kind of touched on this, many of you spoke about women taking leadership roles. And as you know, with everything that's happened the last 4 years in the former presidency, as well as what we're still living through right now, more people are being inspired to take office. But what are some practical first steps that women can do when they decide they want to run? What would you tell a woman who wants to run, and what is a practical first or second step that they can take to actually do it?
If I can, because I might have to jump up, and I really wanted to stay to have some conversation with you. It is extremely important that you understand that when you step out, there's a possibility of failure. And for women to fail or lose a race or be rejected publicly is not a norm for us. We are usually raised, like you look good, you go out there, you win, don't let anybody know your business, whatever. When you step into politics, it's all out there in the street. I am, so many people say, oh my God, you're a member of Congress, but I've lost races, and I lost my first race running for Congress. I ran for county executive. I don't regret a minute of that, because I wanted to kick L. Brooks Patterson's behind, and I was going to show anyone people wouldn't even run because, oh my God, it's Brooks, nobody can beat him. But if you have that burning in the belly, just know, and I mean, I've cried those tears after I lost races and said, I remember this, and those of you who have faith understand this conversation. I said, God, you open up so many doors for me to be able to walk this road and to be placed in this situation. And now I failed, and everyone's looking at me. My enemy and those who don't support me are laughing at me. Lord, why did you forsake me? Is how I felt. I wanted to crawl up under a rock. But did I not know that God was setting me up for the next opportunity? So a failure or a loss does not stop you. A failure in our eyes is sometimes God preparing you to be stronger for the next journey. And I will say to any woman, do not be afraid, because when it's that moving, it's like, I can do this. I have the ability, someone needs to speak to this issue. Someone needs to stand up. And I know I've heard my other colleagues say this, it's like, Rep. Anthony, oh my gosh, you're just amazing. And I'm just a huge fan of Rep. Bolden. I mean, she's my rep. I just love her to death. You heard Rashida, you heard Debbie and all the others talk about this, but you gotta believe in something. And it's not a woman on this session who is not passionate about an issue and trying to make a difference. I know there isn't. So all of you have something to offer. And I just want to tell you, you got to put on your big girl pants when you step in this seat, because politics is not easy. It's hard. It doesn't care if like if you have your lipstick on or your nails done, they don't care. They don't care if you're loved by somebody or loving yourself. This is a hard thing. So you better love yourself, do the right thing, and fight like heck. Thank you.
Would any of the other congresswomen or state reps like to speak on that issue before we go to the next question? Feel free to unmute yourself. And thank you, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence.
All right. Since we do not have anyone else that would like to add to that particular question, I would first off like to say it's an honor to be amongst such great and extraordinary women, and to have such inspiring role models as a young Black man, to see that we as a community can do extraordinary things and as a whole be great leaders. So the next question I would like to pose to the Congresswoman and state reps is a question in regards to what your experience as a woman and as a woman of color in general in the Michigan State House or in Congress. I was wondering if any of you who are left could give us an explanation to that and tell us what exactly is those experiences and how you deal with them.
Congresswoman Stevens.
Yeah, it's such a big question. I would just say that, Debbie Stabenow reflected at the conclusion of the 2018 elections, and it was really the year, the pink wave, so many women running and winning, the most number of women ever coming to Congress, and not the last most number of women, by the way, because we're still not even at half, but we're at a quarter, and we have over 100, and that's really exciting. But she said, we didn't just campaign on women's issues, because every issue is a woman's issue. And I think that's what's so important for us to reflect on in this group. In particular, I come out of the manufacturing sector. I worked on the auto rescue. I worked for the president's senior counsel for manufacturing policy. Then I moved back to the Midwest. And a lot of times, and even when I was on the auto rescue, I was the only woman in the 8 a.m. meeting. I mentioned I was on the science committee under the leadership of a woman. And it just so happens that on my subcommittee, I was the only Democratic woman on that committee, so a lot of times it was just me with all the boys. I would say in the Congress though, and I don't want to step on the toes of the colleagues who serve in the State House, because I do think they deal with a whole host of issues in Lansing, like, people wearing the Confederate flag on the mask, and just some outright blatant disrespect. But in the Congress, what I have found is that none of my colleagues have taken me less seriously because I'm a woman, or you're even a Democrat, right? But the path to getting to Congress, right, was a little bit different. And in fact, when I was running, I was met with a lot of like, what? You know, like, you look like you're 18, or what? Do you have enough experience? And I knew I did, right? I knew I didn't have to be called to ask to do it, but I was met with a lot of resistance while I was running. And I would also say, and this came up earlier, is that think of when Congresswoman Lawrence was talking about Shirley Chisholm and what it felt like to be in her shoes in that time in the Congress. I think it wasn't until 2006 that they got us a bathroom by the floor of the House. So there were times when, you know, there wasn't a bathroom, there wasn't women's sanitary items in our bathrooms, even recently that needed to be mentioned. And I will say also, I don't yet have children, but I do know that the Congress has daycare, except for it is a 2-year plus wait list to get on the daycare. And so it's like, we can talk about this, right? We can talk about the need to have paid family leave and the need to have paid daycare, or affordable daycare. And yet the daycare in the House of Representatives is not really accessible. Or you have young single moms who are in Congress who sometimes get a little frustrated at the schedule and the way that the schedule comes down, because it's not maybe written for the moms. And so there's a group now, because we have more women in Congress, who are shining a light on those things. And look, I'm just going to share this because, like, I don't know. I feel like I've been texting with a few of you in the chat, and it's like, I know we're not in the room, but I feel like we've all made fast friends with each other. But I worked on the campaigns of both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in 2008. Incredible historic campaigns, and two incredibly historic and significant individuals. One who is our former president, and one who should have been our president. Okay. But I just saw, and the jobs I had on those campaigns kind of gave me an insight into, like, a little bit of just what it was like into their daily lives. And I just saw for Hillary, it was like, if she was going to do the Sunday shows, she had to wake up 3 hours early, and she was getting hair, and she was getting makeup, and she was getting all this stuff. And, you know, we talk about the pink tax and the way in which we have to pay more. And, you know, that's I think another thing, Edward, is that there is a little bit of a disparity for the women members of Congress versus the male members of Congress. I mean, and God bless Kamala Harris for doing this so right, you know, because she looks amazing and she's doing a great job. But it's like, they're going to talk about what she's wearing, you know, times infinity more than they would ever talk about what Biden's wearing. And those are just some of the things, you know, like just getting out the door, getting ready, and all that other jazz. So I would say we have, in some respects, come a long way in the Congress. And again, I'm speaking specifically to my institution. It helps that we have a female superhero Speaker of the House, but yet there's still some things that we need to work on and get to. And my gosh, we're fighting like hell for them. So thanks.
Thank you, Congresswoman Stevens. Does anyone else like to add to that particular statement in terms?
I will just quickly add, I think in terms of being a Black woman in elected office, one thing that, and I think I've heard Brenda Lawrence actually mention this, is this notion of we have to do a lot more storytelling. You know, in the legislature, it's still predominantly male and predominantly white. And so when we're advocating for issues that are important to our communities, I don't see a lot of my male white counterparts having to make the case for issues related to healthcare and criminal justice reform and environmental justice the way many of us do. So we spend a lot of time doing a lot of storytelling and lifting up lots of issues and educating a lot of communities that I don't see a lot of other folks doing. And I think that that's just become like a critical part of how we have to build in our time, right? The number of hours that I have to spend fighting and educating and storytelling, it's almost immeasurable, just to get bills past the finish line. Because in many ways, our stories are so unique to us in this climate, in this state, that we just have to do a lot more in order to sell the importance of our issues. So I think that's really unique. And then the other thing is, and I think that we still have a layer of, I don't think folks are often ready to be led by Black women. I think that in many ways, even if you look at the success of Vice President Harris, she could have, and many of us think that she should have been our president, not selected as the vice president. She was ready. She had the experience. She had all the tools in her toolbox that I believe she could have been our commander in chief. But America was not ready yet. Here in Michigan, when you look at Black women in leadership positions in the House and the Senate, we often don't see it. And so I think that we need to get to the point where, yes, we are at the table, but where Black women need to be positioned is being in real leadership positions, so that we're calling the shots. We're actually building the tables, so that we're not trying to convince individuals to take our issues seriously, but we're setting the actual agenda. I think that's the next step in ensuring that our issues are actually being taken seriously. Is not begging for positions, but making sure we're the ones that are giving out the positions. That's, I think, the next step. And we just haven't gotten there quite yet.
Well, thank you very much, State Rep Anthony. It's a pleasure to have you. So now it seems as if we are going to flip to having the last question asked in order to respect our time. So I will pass the baton off to our President, Rita White. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. All of these comments, questions have been so enlightening, informative. We thank you so much for taking your time out to really participate and present at our presentation. Now, with regard to the last question, as we see, this is pretty much, we've already passed our year anniversary of this COVID pandemic, of the shutdown. As you know, that in the beginning and middle and close to now, there has been concerns about limited access to the vaccine in the African-American community. If you've been kind of following the media and the research regarding vaccines that have been provided in the city of Detroit, we seem to have a pretty good amount of opportunities and availability for vaccines for people of color. However, the ages, there is a cutoff in terms of individuals below a certain age that are able to receive the vaccine. Now, Detroit is not our only city in the state of Michigan. We have many cities that have African Americans that live in the city, in their cities, extremely limited access to vaccines. So what steps have you, state representatives and Congresswomen, have taken to make the vaccine more accessible to all members of all cities and counties in the state of Michigan, for who can be eventually eligible to receive the vaccine? I know President Biden has definitely pushed an addendum that we're going to be able to hopefully be able to have everyone to be able to have full vaccines at a certain time during this year. But I think it's crucial that we address the limited access that us as women of color, people of color, still have access to the vaccine. So if you could just address that, that would be great. So can we first go with Representative Kyra Bolden?
Sure. So I will say that we have myself, Rep. Anthony, Rep. Yancey, and others have advocated for equitable distribution of vaccines. And it takes no more than a Google search to figure out the literal racist comments from some of my colleagues about why that should not be the case. And I think that it's absolutely disgusting, especially when many of my colleagues have just outright denied COVID has been a thing, or that it's real, don't wear masks. And to say that now, when communities such as Southfield that have been hit hard, communities in Detroit have been incredibly hit hard, or Pontiac, or some of these Black communities, that we do not deserve equitable distribution of the vaccines. It's again, some of the things going on in Lansing, you as a politician or as an elected official, you do your best to try not to take these things personally. But again, when you hear some of this rhetoric that's being thrown around, it's very difficult. And so I can tell you that we have been on the forefront of not only that, but let me tell you that the federal government, and the Congresswomen on this call can speak to it better than I, sent us $5 billion for our state to appropriate, to help our schools, to help our small businesses, to distribute vaccines. And in our budget, almost $1 billion have been left on the table to play partisan games with our governor, and it's not okay. And so I'm here to tell you that we have been doing everything in our power to advocate for equitable distribution, especially in my district, which I have Southfield, which was hit incredibly hard by COVID. There was one point where I was sending out condolence cards daily, right? But we are, with what Rep. Anthony said, there is a power dynamic there that we have to acknowledge, that the people that have been most affected are not in positions of power currently to make sure that equitable distribution of these vaccines occur. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we are in a position of power, whether it be because there's a global pandemic or because we deserve equitable distribution of funds for our schools, or for any other issue because of systemic racism. And so there's a fight going on. There's a fight going on, and we're doing our very best. And I applaud the governor because she is also doing our best in our health systems, our county health systems. I know in Oakland County, Dave Coulter has done an excellent job of doing outreach and putting in centers in some of these disproportionately affected areas to try to make sure that our populations receive equitable distributions of vaccines. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything is all rainbows and sunshine. It's been a fight for us. So thank you for that question.
And last but not least, Representative Sarah Anthony, do you have any comments?
I mean, Rep. Bolden, as usual, was thorough and really articulated the fight from a legislative and state level perspective. I'll just say, in addition to our legislative strategy and really being on guard to make sure we have the resources we need and fight misinformation, I think our role as lawmakers and also community leaders have catapulted us to make sure that we're also helping to educate our communities. The government has not earned the trust of Black folks. We have a long legacy. We have seen this. We've seen generations be abused, neglected, taken advantage of by the US government as it relates to medical care and healthcare. And so when I have found grace and compassion for folks who are hesitant, not necessarily that there isn't access to the vaccines, but that there's hesitancy and a lack of trust in the vaccine. So a part of our roles has also been educating our communities, letting them know that, one of the vaccines was developed by a Black woman. And making sure that in addition to access, that we're giving folks the tools they need to make informed decisions about their bodies. Knowing that, again, from Tuskegee to Lack, there is a legacy there that we're contending with. But I think that at the end of the day, I want to make sure that if there are real tools and resources that are going to help keep us and our parents and our grandparents and all of our loved ones safe, that we can get back to some sense of normal, I'm going to be an advocate for that. Knowing that too many of us have buried loved ones, have seen folks in our communities just disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. It's up to us to also make sure that we're being diligent about educating our people. So fighting legislatively and also being resources and just sound sources of good information. That's really been our role at the state level.
Thank you so much. So we have surpassed our time. So this has just been an amazing presentation. The main quote I have is knowledge is power. We are factions that we need to merge our knowledge. We need knowledge from you, and you need knowledge from us as attorneys that are on the ground working, seeing all types of things going on in our communities that you need to know about, so we can all work together to make sure our laws are in place to protect us as women and protect us as a community. So again, I thank you. We need to continue this conversation. Please, let's stay all in touch, and I hope we can come back together again and have these continuing conversations to make sure women are protected, human rights are protected, and our community is protected. So again, thank you, all our representatives and congresswomen. We unfortunately had to lose some early because we're very busy. All of us are. So again, thank you, and everyone stay safe and keep your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody that stayed on, and the ladies that came from the Michigan Democratic Women Caucus, Tracy Martin, and all of you guys. Be safe and enjoy the rest of this wonderful weather.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.